The Israelites began to worship other gods. God caused them to lose their battles and become slaves of other nations. The Israelites were enslaved in a country called Midian. God sent an angel to a man named Gideon. God told Gideon the only way to beat the Midianites was to send only a small number of soldiers, just 300. So, in the middle of the night, the 300 soldiers smashed jars with torches in them, confused and terrified the Midianites so much they began to kill one another. But when Gideon died, the Israelites went back to their old ways, so they were captured by the Philistines. God sent another judge named Samson. The Philistine leaders were afraid of Samson because of his incredible strength. They knew Samson had fallen in love with a woman named Delilah, so they paid her to find out the secret behind his superhuman strength. Delilah led the leaders into his room, and they cut off his hair. With his strength gone, the Philistines gouged his eyes out and threw him in prison. His hair grew back, and his strength began to return. They took Samson out of prison, forcing him to perform in front of them in their palace. He placed his hands on the pillars and shook them until the roof of the palace completely caved in, killing all the Philistines as well as himself. The Israelites' pattern of disobedience continued, and God would need to look outside of Israel for someone who would follow God's ways. There was a man named Elimelech and his wife Naomi who lived in Israel during the time when the judges were in charge. There was a great shortage of food in Israel that caused them to move to a foreign country called Moab. Elimelech and Naomi raised 2 sons, and when their sons grew up, they each married women from Moab. Sadly, Naomi's husband and 2 sons died, and Naomi was left alone with her 2 daughter-in-laws. She told them that she was going to move back to Israel and that they should return to their own families. But one of the women, Ruth, refused to leave Naomi. She said, "Wherever you go, I will go. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God." So Naomi and Ruth moved back to Israel to begin a new life. One day, Ruth went to a field to pick up the grain that the farmers had left behind. Little did she know that the owner of the field was Boaz, a relative of Naomi. Boaz was kind to her and offered her to come find food whenever she wanted. Naomi was getting older, so she came up with a plan to provide for Ruth once she was gone. She suggested that Ruth sneak into Boaz's bedroom while he was sleeping, uncover his feet, and ask him to take care of her. Ruth took Naomi's advice. She uncovered Boaz's feet and laid down next to him. In the middle of the night, Boaz woke up startled. Ruth asked him to care for and protect her. Boaz said he needed to first buy the land she lived on so that he would have the right to marry her. So Boaz brought together the decision makers of his town and asked for permission to buy the land. The leaders gave Boaz permission and prayed that God would help Ruth be a great wife. They were married and had a son named Obed, who would soon become the grandfather of one of the greatest leaders Israel had ever known.